On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1975. We're going to be taking a look at David Gates and Glen Campbell, and they're going to be performing a medley of hits written by David. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, we do have analysis videos on David Gates and Glen Campbell independently of each other, so you guys can check those out independently if you want to, but we're going to be taking a look at these two singing together. We'll watch it the whole way through as well, then we will jump into the analysis after. If you want to watch this video multiple times, there's a link in the description below. As always, I have isolated the vocals, run them through the pitch monitoring software as well for the analysis after. But let's get into it and see how they get on.
You want to do a medley?
Let's do it.
Okay, you start it out and I'll join you.
Okay.
Okay.
The other side, maybe climbing on rainbows, but baby, here goes. Dreams there for those who sleep. Life, it's for us to keep. If you're wondering what this song leading to, I wanna make it with you. I really think that we could make it, girl. Baby, I'ma want you. Baby, I'ma need you. You're the only one I care enough to hurt about. Maybe I'm a crazy, but I just can't live without your loving and affection, giving me direction, like a guiding light to help me through my darkest hour. Lately I'm a praying that you'll always be staying beside me. Used to be my life was just emotions passing by. Then you came along and made me laugh and made me cry. You taught me why everybody needs a someone waiting to be there when things are looking down. So if you feel a little lonely, go out and find your one and only. Somewhere out there, someone will care for you. Never let her go. Never let her go. Never let her go. Just never let her go.
And there we have it. I mean, that live performance is just so impressive on so many levels, because we just get to sit back and enjoy it. But the way that their voices blend together, the great thing about this performance is the way that we've got two voices here that are independently just so accurate, but on a different level. But the way that they bring their voices together, again, this is the thing that works because of the quality of singers that we're talking about here, but just the quality of vocal, full stop. Because part of being a great vocalist is being able to adapt the way you sing depending on the situation, and that can either be within a particular composition where you edit your dynamics and you use different vocal registers and maybe use a lighter head voice sound or belt-in chest voice, all of these different things that you use to put across a different emotion. But in this scenario, it's changing the way you sing to blend with the other vocalist, and both David and Glen have got quite similar voices with the way that they can just ascend with their head voice in to these notes up at the top end of the male tenor range. You know, we're getting kind of G's in there, G4s, A4s, I think there's a B4 in there as well when we're talking about the harmony lines that Glen's providing. But the important thing is, because we've got this clarity of tone, it means that as the voices ascend, it doesn't become more aggressive, it doesn't become shouty, because that is something that can happen with a lot of male singers. As you ascend in range, you're now trying to get your voice to that point. And it's an entirely different thing to start handing off the voice to head voice rather than keeping it in chest voice or too much of it in chest voice and getting, you know, the raspy sound and just feel like you're almost shouting and sound like that as well. You then get into the depth of quality that you have just in an artist like Glen Campbell and David Gates as well. Just playing ability, singing ability, writing ability. It's just any box you want ticked, it will be ticked by these kinds of artists. But, you know, David Gates especially with that ear for melody. But we will listen to it again and see what we can point out.
Hey, have you ever tried?
So here we've started with our hey, and listen to the way that David's voice is so balanced. He's not going and he's not going into a different place with his voice, going too much into chest voice, which would be that kind of sound. He's keeping that so it's kind of keeping this voice all in the same place, tonally speaking, but also with the placement of his voice. He's allowing the resonance to just kind of stay where it is, which gives you such a balanced sound.
Really reaching out for the other side. Maybe climbing on rainbows.
I mean, that happened in a fraction of a second, but the pitch monitoring software does show you where David starts and ends up at that E4. It was a split second, so you're not necessarily going to be able to hear it, but
Maybe climb.
is that sound? Maybe, you know, it's a really quick slide up. Maybe no, and na. It's into that into that same head voice space. And what I'm doing there is I'm singing the octave below in the same place. If I went and went like that, it now sounds lower because I'm going down into my chest voice. But if I go and still keep it light and don't allow that chest voice to take over, then it keeps a consistency to it. That's exactly what we get with not only David but Glen as well.
On
Rainbows and rainbows. He gets such a clean connection on his vocal cords. It's just so easy to listen to.
But baby, here goes. Dreams there for those who sleep. Life.
I mean, we're in danger of just listening to it all over again because it's that good. But the other thing to look out for and appreciate in this performance is the way that we start, because Glen says to David just to, start playing, and then he'll join in. But when we get further into the performance, we can hear that we've got strings going on. We've got this full backing, which means that we have this string section somewhere. I don't know where it is. We can't see it. It's not ever cut to with the camera. But considering that we are performing here to David's tempo, he started the song, so they're not waiting for a click track. They're not waiting for some kind of cue to start. And then, even if they were, it would mean that David would have to be so spot on with his timing if they're playing to a backing track of strings. Nowadays, this would all be a backing track, even the guitar, sadly. But we've got two guys here playing guitar, singing at the same time, and having this string section come in, but a band that are coming in, accompanying them at their tempo. So they're listening to the strumming on the guitar and they're just fading themselves in. I mean, when you think about it, it is so impressive from that standpoint, because then more of that string sound starts to take over the further into the performance we go, which means that now it's probably the case that David and Glen are just monitoring what they're doing in relation to what they can hear with the overall sound, rather than this quiet acoustic guitar intro and beginning to the performance that we have.
It's for us to keep. If you're wondering what this all is leading to, I wanna make it with you. I really think that we could make it.
And then Glen coming in with that backing vocal. This overall sound is so good that you think, well, how are they doing this? Just in terms of the levels and judging what you're playing. And I'm talking more about the strings here and the elements that we can't see. Judging what they're playing in relation to the two guys on stage and making sure that they've got a really clear feed of that guitar. Because it sounds so good that this is usually achieved by a backing track and having a count in or playing to a click track and not actually having live guitars going. So yeah, it's really impressive. And I know that back in the day, this is the kind of thing they used to do, especially with shows that were music orientated, and it might have somebody who is a musician presenting it, and you have artists that come and perform. They have a whole band, and that house band effectively play the songs of the artist who's performing on that particular night, whoever it is. But it's always just a top level performance across the board instrumentally. So it's great to hear this kind of thing that, this has pretty much been phased out now. I'm going to take down the accompaniment a little bit so that we can hear these vocals more clearly.
Make it with you. I really think that we could make it.
Listen to Glen Campbell's voice there. He is so perfectly positioned from a dynamic perspective, and this isn't something that's being controlled by somebody on a desk thinking, oh, he's too quiet, he's too loud. This is Glen editing the way that he's singing, and just the way that he's singing at that level, but with technique. Listen again.
I really think that we could make it.
I really think that we could make it. That's what he's doing. I really think. And that's the kind of level that he's singing at. Again, this is something that sometimes totally flies over the head of singers when they sing a harmony line with someone. When I say that it flies over some singers' heads, what I mean is some singers might come in and say, I really thought that we could make it. And they'll come in like that, where they are behind a singer who's going, na, 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 who's singing that main line, but they're doing it lightly, or with David's really easy to listen to tone. It is so relaxed that when you come in with a harmony line, you can't afford to be too loud. That's got to be relaxed, if not more relaxed. And when I'm talking about more relaxed, what I mean is, if you imagine that David Gates is getting a vocal cord connection at 85 to 90%. So we get a so is getting a vocal cord connection that is clear and clean, but there's 10% of there's 10% of air in there that's giving it a silky smooth sound, so that it's like floating, into your ears rather than being aggressive. What Glen's doing here is he's not only taking that on board, but he's placing his voice probably at about 80, where it's that. So he's put even more air into his sound so that it's underneath David's lead vocal. I mean, obviously these are tiny details, but this is what makes the difference between a standalone performance like this and two guys singing together who are clearly independent artists and don't sing each other's songs and don't really know about dynamics, or they just do their own thing independently. Then you never get a blend. It's never a performance where you could imagine them as a duo. With this performance, you wouldn't be surprised if these guys were called a particular band and this is them performing as they have done throughout their teenage years and 20s into their career now, that their voices blend so well. That's what you'd expect. But great singers can get the sound of a band who have been together for a really long time immediately, because they've got this sense of how to sing well with other people rather than just singing well by themselves, because it is just an art form in itself.
Baby, I'ma want you. Baby, I'ma need you.
And listen to the way that Glen's voice now is so much clearer but louder, because he's taken the lead vocal. If he was doing the harmony line like this, it wouldn't have worked. But this is what I mean about just making these changes on the fly. This is such a dramatic change now, vocally, but you're not going to notice this unless you are analysing it, as we are doing here. But these constant changes are so impressive because they're done so subtly and with such ease that, we can just sit back and enjoy it.
You're the only one I care enough to hurt about. Maybe I'm a crazy, but I just can't live without your loving and affection, giving me direction.
And David is now doing exactly the same thing. Again, this is not something that's being mixed on the fly. This is just the performance that they're giving, and David is now underneath Glen's voice. So Glen's now the lead vocal, David is the backing vocalist, and again he's just taken a little bit off his sound. It's having this vocal cord connection that is 90-95%, and that backing vocal coming in exactly where it needs to be. Listen again.
Your loving and affection,
loving and affection, really light in the background.
giving me direction,
Giving me direction.
like a guiding light.
And having the range to do that. Like a guiding light. Keeping it light, but going all the way up there to supply these harmony lines. Again, you're going to need range. If you're going to do this live, you need to be able to harmonise with the other vocalists, but sing the higher harmonies, because sometimes the lead vocal is in that male tenor range. And I know that we're in this head voice sound here and it's a bit lighter, but going na 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 ah, you've got to be able to get to those notes, and you've got to be able to get to those notes without going na na ha, and do that, because doing that imagine if your backing vocalist or the person that you're singing with can't get the high notes unless they kind of have to push their voice to reach there. So this is it. It's just vocal technique on a different level, but it's not really even vocal technique because they're doing this naturally. They're just kind of floating up to these notes because they have that natural ability to do it, to balance that airflow, to just make it a more head voicey sound, to put air into the sound, to blend their voices together. So much going on here.
To help me through my darkest hour. Lately I'm a praying that you'll always be a staying beside me. Used to be my life was just emotions passing by.
And listen to this now, as we can see on the pitch monitoring software, just really accurate, but they're both singing the same line here. And when we're going up to the G sharp 4 and the A sharp 4, I mean, we are, technically quite close to the B4 there, but listen to the way that they're now both singing the same line, but keep this light blend. I mean, it's a light blend of their voices together, but they are getting a little bit more of a connection in there. Have a listen.
Used to be my life was just emotions passing by.
So now it's this. Used to be my life. Na 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 na. So rather than that we had before, it used to be my life. Na, na, kind of in that place, but again, I mean, obviously the two voices are going to make it sound a lot more upfront because they're both connecting their vocal cords a little bit more, but still we've got this head voice sound to it.
It's just emotions
Actually, that motion, there is a little bit of air in there.
passing by.
But, and again, passing by. I mean, when when I say there's a bit of air in there, when we're talking about a B4, that's a semitone off the male tenor high C. These are high notes for guys. I mean, you can probably tell that just by the sound of it. But it's all about hitting these notes with control and keeping just everything exactly where it needs to be from a dynamic perspective in relation to each other. That's the key here.
Then you came along and made me laugh and made me cry. You taught me what everybody needs.
And again, that little bit of vibrato with that really nice airy sound. That's just something that Glen added in there. And I mean, if you haven't seen my other videos on Glen Campbell, make sure you go and watch those, because we're talking about a guy who not only can sing like this, but, had such technical ability at playing the guitar to a level where guitarists who don't sing would like to have got to the level that Glen did on the guitar. These are great singers, and they play the instruments. They're session level. I mean, Glen Campbell, of course, the Wrecking Crew, session level musicians playing instruments, let alone being able to sing at this kind of level as well. So, yeah, just so impressive. It's ridiculous. But let's listen on.
Needs a someone able to be there when things are looking down. So if you feel a little lonely,
Again, they're feel a little lonely. These notes that Glen's throwing in the background. I mean, you can see up here, this is the G4. Again, we're above that. That's going to be the G sharp. Above that is obviously going to be the A4. You could analyze this performance for years, because you could get the guitar out and start breaking down chords and the playing going on and, synchronizing the playing with each other and the singing. But fundamentally, what's going on here is that you've just got two great all-round musicians who've got great voices, and they appreciate everything about music from every different angle. This isn't something that, they've written down and that they're reading from sheet music and doing it. It's just a total feel thing. And it's not only a feel for the songs and David's performance of those songs, but it's a feel for how to perform together and literally changing your performance from millisecond to millisecond, depending on what the other vocalist is doing. Such a cool ebb and flow to this performance, and just one of those things that, it is a standalone performance, a moment in time that you get to appreciate and enjoy. Thankfully, on YouTube, you can enjoy it as many times as you want. So, yeah, I strongly suggest that you do that. Link in the description below. So, thank you guys for requesting this particular video for me to take a look at. Keep those suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!